You know, it's really interesting. I always find this is such, you just watch, I love working with people, and I love to have around us people who are in every generation, because it gives you glimpses. If you work with younger people, it kind of helps you. We actually act often as futurists. Our job as Success in the City is to be observing trends, commenting on trends, watching. Well, we kind of can see our behavior in our, because we're commonly here, this is the baby boom generation, but you have to begin to understand and watch how young people are engaging in all of these tools and technologies. Yeah, I remember when texting came out, people go, and my younger colleagues would go, I sent you a text. Where did you send that? Where do I find it? You didn't answer my text. You're what? You know, I remember I was just baffled. Now I'm like texting regularly, but it's really compelling. And it's really interesting, you know, Google bought YouTube. Why did Google buy YouTube? Because if you ask a younger person to do research for something, I go to Google. They go to YouTube.
Interesting.
Is that not a compelling fact? So whether or not you like to be in front of the camera, you have to learn to become comfortable with it, because it will be a technology used.
Well,
isn't that fascinating?
I'll tell you, the technology is totally fascinating, and what it can do and how creative young people are. I have 3 daughters. My eldest is 22, then I have one 20, and I have one that just turned 13. The 13-year-old just did her science fair experiment. She, of course, the trifold boards. Any of us who have had kids are familiar with the trifold boards. But this year, her presentation, she filmed it on her Apple, on her Mac, and presented it through the Mac. I was fascinated. She just got the Mac for her birthday in February, and she's already figured out how to do a film on it. Now, if I were trying to do a film, it would take me until next February to figure out how to do it. But it does tell me something. She's 13 years old. We have no idea what the technology will look like when she's 22, or when she's 33, or when she has, you know, a 13-year-old child. And it's going so rapidly, and there's such sponges that we really have to figure out how we incorporate this into the work that we do. And I think philanthropy in particular has to stay on the cutting edge, because it's so easy to fall into what has been tradition and waiting for the check to kind of come in, and that's just not the way a lot of people do it any longer.
You know, I always think, which is, you know, and it's in no way am I trying to in any way belittle how much I think the downward economy has hurt all of us, but the really good thing, if you watch what happens, emerging trends, emerging growth happens in those in the slump period, because we're forced to get creative. We're forced to step out and say, how am I going to reach my audience? How am I going to engage them? And this forces us, so it's a really positive thing. So now I want you to explain how the Community Foundation works, because a lot of people and a lot of organizations do a lot of philanthropy, but how does it work? And there's not just one. So this is Washington, D.C.'s Community Foundation. There are other ones, right, throughout the country. And are you all together, or is it?
Okay. So you want that whole thing?
Yeah, explain it to us so we understand.
Okay, community foundations are public foundations, public charities. So just like, say, you give a contribution to the Red Cross, which is a public charity, you can give a contribution to the Community Foundation. We are not a private foundation. We were not established by a person, a family, a corporation. Those typically are private foundations. Community foundations, as public foundations, are created by a group of people who put in resources to establish the organization, and we receive contributions in from many, many, many sources. The beauty of community foundations is that as a public charity, we serve as a place where Cynthia could have her personal philanthropy without having to establish a private foundation. Now, when you first started and you were talking about your friends saying, you know, when would they know they were successful, I thought you were going to say, they said they would think they were successful when they established a private foundation, because a lot of people think I'm going to establish a private foundation.
I think that is part of the picture, definitely.
But private foundations, unless you have, well, you will be successful, because you need to have about $10 to $15 million to make it worth your while to establish a private foundation, because of the cost of administration. The beauty of the Community Foundation is that virtually you are establishing a philanthropic fund that can make all of the grants that you would like to nonprofit organizations, but without any of the administrative expense and hassle because the public charity of the Community Foundation does all of that work for you. So the Community Foundation is made up of what we call component funds, individual funds that have a specific or not focus for their giving. In addition to that side of the equation, we also have unrestricted giving. So those are dollars that the Board of Trustees of the Community Foundation are determining what's going to be the agenda. What are we going to look at trying to do in this community? What we call the component funds are donor-advised funds, designated funds, scholarship funds, field of interest funds. So they're more specific. So a donor establishes a fund and says, you know, I really think that I'm interested in focusing on education. So those dollars can only be used for education. Or I'm going to establish a memorial fund in my son's name to support scholarships out of this high school. So that's established at the Community Foundation. Or I have a general purpose fund at the Community Foundation because I want to give to a number of different places. So that's how the Community Foundation is established. And our operating budget, because we're a nonprofit organization, is generated. About 70% of it comes from fees on those component funds for the management of the funds, and the remaining come from contributions as well as one fundraiser that we have every year, which is a gala in December. So that's how we generate our budget. The Community Foundation for the National Capital Region, we serve the region, not just the District of Columbia, has about $350 million in assets under management. And we have about 800 or so component funds. So there are a lot of moving parts to the Community Foundation because we have to manage all of those funds, distribute grants from those funds, as well as do the unrestricted grant making. And for our Community Foundation, we really have landed on this issue of economic security for the residents of the metropolitan Washington region, focusing in specifically on making sure there is a safety net, having quality education, and workforce development that will help support people to reach economic security. You are absolutely correct in saying community foundations exist throughout the country. Almost every community you go to will have a community foundation. And in fact, in this region, we have several. We serve the entire region. We have 2 affiliates, one in Montgomery County and one in Prince George's County. And in Northern Virginia, there are 3 freestanding community foundations that are not affiliated with the Community Foundation for the National Capital Region. You have the Community Foundation for Northern Virginia, which really serves Fairfax, I believe Loudoun, and Prince William counties. You have the Arlington Community Foundation and the Alexandria Community Trust. They are all community foundations. We all function the same way. Our focus may be different. We are significantly larger than those, but we've been around for a lot longer than those foundations have as well. But they serve that particular community. And that's what distinguishes a community foundation often, is that we have a geographic footprint that we focus on. So while if you had a fund at the Community Foundation, you said, you know, my alma mater is in Ohio, you can make a grant to your alma mater in Ohio, but we encourage you to do the majority of your giving in the region, within the region. And we are one of probably about, 900 or so community foundations across the country. And interestingly enough, the largest one is in an area you would, I'd love to get your, what do you think, where do you think the largest community foundation is?
Well, I would have guessed here. So then my second guess would be New York or San Francisco.
Those are large. New York has over $1 billion in assets. San Francisco has probably about $1 billion, maybe over $1 billion, but the largest is in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so that's totally a mind blower.
Tulsa, Oklahoma has over $2 billion in assets.
I'm down.
Is it?
I'm very proud.
Well, trust me, they shouldn't have any issues in Tulsa for all the money that they have at the Tulsa Community Foundation.
That is
And it has been
astonishing.
driven by a couple of individuals who have been giving money annually to the foundation to build it over time. So, you know, it's called the Tulsa Community Foundation. I don't know if it serves all of Oklahoma or just Tulsa, but we know they have more money than is the city budget, I think. So
That is astonishing. So Tulsa, Oklahoma, and not knowing if it's sort of statewide,
Right, I'm
but
not
has
sure.
the largest
Yep.
financial budget.
That has the largest assets
Sets-
under management.
That's incredible.
Has the largest assets under
So I want to
management.
kind of come back just so we get clarity in this, because you're very familiar with what you do. So number one, your focus is serving your community. You can have people say, I want to give you $100 today.
That's
The Community
right.
Foundation. I'm
Yes.
not, but okay. We're going to talk about how, though, I'm going to support you. But, so I could write and just say, hey, you decide where it goes.
Yes.
Or I could say, a success in the city, these are our core issues. And I want it to go, can you tell me what funds you have there where it can go that way? Or I can say, hey, we really want to do foundation work inside our organization. Like we've already got a foundation. Would it make sense to kind of tuck it in? I mean, can you do that too?
You absolutely can. We have funds that are individual funds, family funds, corporate funds, organization funds, because people do make the decision, I don't know if I want to run the foundation or if I just want to have some involvement in where the dollars go. And the Community Foundation really provides that vehicle for people to be involved in their giving, but not have to worry about audits, taxes, all of that stuff, because the Community Foundation.
That's really interesting, and it's really giving me something to think about, because it's like a heavy, because when you're a small growing organization, it's a heavy burden, and then it seems like all of these extra reporting criteria are just a little.
And there are a lot.
Yeah.
And there are a lot.
We're discovering that.
I think the other benefit, though, of the Community Foundation is the value add of the staff and their knowledge about the community and how they can help you with regard to where you want to direct your dollars. But also this kind of club atmosphere that is created by the people that are a part of the Community Foundation, because you will find like people at the Community Foundation who have an interest in the same area that you have an interest in, and we can bring people together to look at how can I make my giving be more impactful, because I don't think any of us we're not going to solve any issues by ourselves. We're going to have to work collaboratively to be able to deal with some of the issues presenting themselves in our communities. And so we have the ability to connect donors. We can connect donors to really good nonprofits, and we can connect institutional foundations, private foundations, to individual donors as well as nonprofit organizations. So I like to think of it almost as it's a convening agent and a table for people to talk about giving and to figure out new ways to give and to figure out new things to give to.
I'm really glad we're sharing this, because I think it's an opportunity we really had missed. I think a lot of us aren't aware out there, and gives you a kind of place to kind of connect, because I think especially for women, we really are driven by I don't know if it's our hormonal structure, but we have this innate sense of giving and changing. And maybe it's because we raise our children, when we have that first baby put in our arms, and our grandchildren, we want this world to be better for them and for every other child to follow. So do you have a normal board of directors in your organization?
We are governed by a board of directors that is representative of the community. We have 19 trustees on board. In fact, we are just getting ready to have our meeting where we nominate new trustees to the board. Our board meets 4 times a year, and then in our affiliate offices in Montgomery County and Prince George's, we have advisory boards. So they have individuals, and the idea is that those individuals, including our board of trustees, in addition to their governance role, which is the role of every board, they become ambassadors for the work of the Community Foundation. The majority of them actually have funds at the Community Foundation. They utilize it, they know the service that we provide, and then they can sell that service, because ultimately, again, we're a nonprofit organization. We have to continue to bring assets into the organization so we can generate fees to operate the organization. Not just that, community foundations are established to be in perpetuity. So we need to generate those dollars to continue to support the community over the years as the issues in the community change. So our board does the same thing that every nonprofit board does. They focus on the finances of the organization, the executive staff of the organization, but they also get to delve into a lot of the issues that are facing the community and figure out how we can be creative in addressing some of those issues.